Hey, welcome to another episode of Asexualise My Asexual Life. This is a place to be for education about asexuality. So subscribe and hit that bell icon right now. So welcome to day 7 of Asexual Perspectives Awareness Month when I'm recording this, which is July 2024. This is to celebrate our diversity across the beautiful asexual spectrum and our differences within it. And I launched this and founded this month in 2018, which was the year after I published Asexual Perspectives Awareness. Asexual Perspectives books, because Asexual Perspectives Awareness Month is based on this book, because this book celebrates our diversity across the asexual spectrum and our differences within it. That was a major reason of why I wrote it. Plus, I kept getting asked loads and loads of questions by different asexuals about, can asexuals masturbate? Can they watch porn? What's the difference between sexual attraction and sexual desire and arousal? And a load of other questions constantly in my inbox. So I decided to answer them in this book, along with getting the answers from 46 other asexual perspectives. So today we're going to be discussing the positives about being asexual and not having sex. So there's a big myth that you can't be happy in your life or healthy if you're not having sex, and that everyone should be having sex, and what a miserable life you must lead and how boring it must be if you don't have sex. Actually, my life is far from boring. I cannot be bored of my life. Even if I try, it's too boring to be boring. And I'm not boring, and my life's not boring. So yes, I don't have time to be bored. I'm too busy helping asexuals on this channel, writing books for asexuals, and living my life purpose and dreams, which is a great thing if you're not having sex, because if you're not in a partnership and you're single and you're not having sex, all that time you would be in a partnership and having sex, you can be spending living your own life purpose, fulfilling your own goals, ambitions, and dreams, and just getting on and achieving so much more than being tied to someone and having to have sex with them. Now, I know some people like having sex. I know some people enjoy having sex. And I know for some people, sex is amazing and a very positive experience. But I just want you to know not everyone feels that way. And there are a lot of benefits and positives to not having sex. And also, sex does bond you in a relationship, which can be great if you've got a really healthy person that you're in a relationship with. But if you're in a relationship that ends up with a person who's narcissistic, abusive, toxic, you've just bonded yourself to that person even more, and it's harder to leave them because you physically, chemically bonded yourself with that person. This isn't that often talked about. So please understand that having sex is not just having sex. There's a myriad of emotions that go with it. There's a mental awareness you have to have in order to be able to do it and feel good doing it, or want to do it, or be happy doing it. And obviously, you've got all the physiological responses, the biological responses, but you've also got the fact it bonds you automatically more to that person, as does kissing. I love kissing, as you know. So kissing also bonds you. When you do physical stuff with someone and it releases chemicals like oxytocin and dopamine, the feel-good chemicals, you then associate that person with giving you those feel-good chemicals, and that's how you can become actually addicted to a person. So being addicted to someone is a genuine thing. You're not necessarily addicted to them because of their personality. You could be addicted to someone who's very toxic, and part of this is a bonding you go through when you're having sex or physical stimulation and contact by them. So I think it's important to be aware that if you're not doing that with someone, you are in fact safeguarding yourself against that type of thing happening to you. So this is a huge benefit of asexuality and those asexuals that don't want or need sex or partake in it. So asexuality is a spectrum. There are some asexuals that are sex positive, some that do partake in sex, and some who can enjoy it as an activity to do. Some people who are asexual feel close to the partner when they do that. Some asexuals want to experiment with that. It's okay, right? It's okay to do what's right for you. But there are a lot of positives to not having sex, and I think these are not very widely discussed or talked about. So I wanted to bring your attention to that very important thing. So this is in Asexual Perspectives book, and this is Silji's perspective on what are the positives about being asexual. There are so many positive things about being asexual. The puns, inside jokes, and the community. Finding out everything is normal. Oh, and the promise of world domination. There are quite a lot of asexual community circles that do talk about world domination, but I can imagine all the cake jokes now coming out. There's a lot of jokes in the asexual community about cake is better than sex. So I think that's why a lot of my food videos resonate with asexuals. I especially like the sandbox. The sandbox is part of a set of pictures designed to explain the different sexualities relating to different things found in the park or playground. So it goes the asexual sandbox, bisexual swing, pansexual merry-go-round, heterosexual slide, and homosexual horsey. I thought it was cute, and they were done in the different pride colours. So that's very interesting. Have you got any personal experience of that? I'd love to know your views. I hadn't heard about that until the person who volunteered to be in my Asexual Perspectives book chose to talk about that. Right, so Victoria's story. What does Victoria find the positives about being asexual? Sometimes it seems aces are spared the drama that comes with sexual relationships. We get to lean back and observe the human mating ritual, which, let's be honest, is pretty hilarious. We also spend less time worrying about whom to sleep with and spend less time daydreaming about hot people. But instead, we have to worry about heteronormativity, etc. So, yeah, like I said in the beginning of this video, we can spend the time that other people would be spending on sex, and also applies to sexual attraction stuff, to be doing some other things in our life. And we have less to worry about in that regard if we're not having sex. Although I have to say, this person specifically says about not thinking about people as hot. Some asexuals can still find people hot. I find certain guys, very aesthetically hot. So that can cause me to think about that person a lot and think what it'd be like to have a relationship with that person and romanticize the situation. Right. So just because someone's asexual does not necessarily mean to say that they don't find anyone aesthetically hot. But some asexuals, especially those that don't experience any romantic attraction or sexual attraction, would not necessarily find anyone hot at all. And some of them would not find any of them hot. So you have to take every asexual into consideration. So what are the positives about being asexual? Fiora's story. People have told me they wish sexual attraction wasn't such a distraction for them. So I guess one positive thing is that I don't have to deal with that. And yes, I've heard that before as well. That, if people are doing their work, they can be so sexually attracted to someone, or if they're in a coffee shop or club or wherever they are, they can be so sexually attracted to someone, especially like when they're trying to do their uni work or they're trying to do their job, and they can be so distracted by the sexual attraction, it's hard to stop thinking about someone they desire or want, especially in a sexual way, but they can't really get their mind off that person. So it can be a huge distraction, sexual attraction. It can be annoying from that point of view. Joel's story, never needing birth control is a positive, said Joel. Never needing to get tested for STDs. No wondering if I might be pregnant. There are the fun ones. Those are the fun ones. But mainly not having sex in my life keeps things far simpler. So yeah, I am an asexual who has had sex in the past, and I have to say I used to get very paranoid about possibly getting pregnant, because I knew from 15 years of age I never wanted to be pregnant in my entire life. So the fact that I found out I'm asexual in 2014, the last time I had sex was in 2011, is such a relief that I'm not having to worry about if I get pregnant or not ever again. So that is a huge benefit for me. I used to really be paranoid. Any little stomach upset, I was taking the pill at the time. At any little stomach upset, I'd be like, no, I'm not having sex, because my ex liked to do it natural. I'm like, well, I'm only doing it natural if these conditions are met, and that's it. So sometimes we wouldn't have sex for a couple of months, and that was such bliss for me, because I wasn't really into having sex, he was. And so I'd rather have not bothered and just had the kissing and other stuff. So that is a huge benefit to me not having sex anymore. It used to be really hard for me. You'd be worried all the time. It's very risky. I used to have pregnancy test kits. I still actually got a pregnancy test kit from years ago that I kept. I kind of kept it on purpose. One, I forgot about it. And then two, when I was doing this channel, since I've done this channel, and I'm finishing my Asexual Guide to Sex book off this year, then, which is something I've been working on for like 5 years, then I thought it'd be apt when that book comes out to do videos specifically talking about contraception and stuff, because there are some asexuals, unfortunately, that try sex and they think they can do without contraceptives and they don't need it for the first time they have sex. They're very ill-educated about it and stuff like that. And so I would actually like in the future to do a video about contraception for those people who are interested in doing that type of thing. And I decided to keep the pregnancy test kit when I talk about stuff that I did in my past, just to prove to you what it was like for me and that it was very real. And so that test is way out of date. It's years old, but I wanted to keep it. I found it in one of my drawers recently and I'm like, oh, I still want to keep that. I might get rid of it after I've done the book and talked about it and everything like that. But I think it's still really important tool and prop to use for that type of thing. And so I just like want to keep it for now, but I might not have it forever because it's good to get rid of stuff in your past life, right? But I think it's very important to know about these things. I think just because you're asexual doesn't mean to say you shouldn't still educate yourself about it, especially if you end up dating someone, just in case they start talking about things sexually and you don't have a clue what they're talking about. It's good to be educated, right? But in the main, I just think it's such a relief when you know that you're not going to be doing that again, because I can have kids now, and just like I could back then, and physically, like I'm capable of doing that, and that's something I never ever 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 want to happen in my life. So I do whatever I can to just prevent that. But that was like a really big problem for me. Like, I was more terrified of doing that than having sex, because the consequence of having a baby is just, I know some people love babies, it's really not my thing. I'm just not into it at all, and I really don't want that lifestyle. And I've heard some people say, oh, you don't have to give up your life to have kids. You have to change your life and lifestyle to have kids. You can't just go around and be your single self like you used to be. You've got different responsibilities, so I'm not a mother, but if I was, I would damn well make sure I lived up to those responsibilities, and I couldn't do everything I do when I'm single in that type of scenario. But it's not going to happen because I'm not interested in doing that. But I believe children deserve respect, and they deserve the full love and care, and to get all their needs met as a kid. That's the point. If you have children, you've got to do it right. I don't personally want children, like I said, but if I was, then I'd make sure I was doing that. So the fact that some people say, oh, you can't, you can still have children and have the life you had before, that's not true. You have a completely different lifestyle. That little one relies on you for things. You have to put them first, and if you're not that type of person, if you don't want that lifestyle, if you've got so much you want to achieve in your own life, there's no point in having kids, right? So that's a huge benefit to me. So Cassie's story, what the positives about being asexual. I can only speak as an aromantic asexual. Things may be vastly different from romantic asexuals. As I see it, you are free to be yourself without the added pressure about whether someone will find you desirable or not. You avoid the apparent emotional turmoil people go through when they are attracted to someone, but that someone doesn't find them attractive in turn. You can keep a clear head most of the time because your brain does not get clouded by infatuation, which means you can be more reasonable with another person, which means you can be more reasonable. You don't feel unfulfilled just because you're not sharing your life with another person, and you feel complete as you are. I actually think that most of the things regarding being asexual are positive. Don't forget they said that aromantic. The only negatives I can think of are the reactions of others and being bombarded by over-sexualization of nearly everything in this society. So most things tied with the outside world rather than being asexual in itself. I think this person makes a really valid point. However, they say they are coming from an aromantic perspective. You know, they're not interested, or they're not romantically attracted to people, as well as not sexually attracted. So I think if you are romantic in nature, especially if you're hyper romantic like I am, you can get a lot of emotional turmoil by being romantically attracted to someone. You can get it if you're romantically attracted to someone who's not romantically attracted to you, but although that feels somewhat of a relief sometimes for me. And then you can also, you know, be romantically attracted to someone who's romantically attracted to you, but they're the wrong person for you. So that is very upsetting, and romantic turmoil, you know. So I think it does definitely depend on what type of asexual you are, but it is easier if you're not in a romantic relationship, in my opinion, to be more clear-headed. If you're not actually on the dating scene, it's easy for you to be more clear-headed. It isn't my personal experience this year. So the fact that I'm not active on dating sites anymore, I'm not actively going after anyone for a date, I'm not seeking out dating sites and apps anymore and going and messaging guys and stuff like that, I find that I'm a lot more calmer, I'm a lot less stressed. I've not got the anguish I used to have before. I feel I'm a lot better on my own. I'm a lot happier on my own. I feel like it's such a good time for me to write more and more books and get into flow. And I find that not being romantically inclined with anyone, or sexually obviously, is a lot better for my mental health. You know, I find that a relationship does take a lot of time, energy, and effort up. Of course, it's going to. And I find, you know, like sexual stuff takes even more time, energy, and effort up. And it can be like a lot of work doing sexual stuff, even if you're not having sexual intercourse, just touching someone and masturbating them or whatever, or doing sexual stuff. It can be very tiring, especially if it's not your main thing that you're interested in, right? If you're not really excited or enthusiastic about it, it can seem more like a chore. It can seem more hard work, and it can seem more like, oh my gosh, have I got to do this for years? You know what I mean? If you're with a person for years. But if you're on your own and you're just doing your hobbies and your interests, and you're getting a lot of pleasure out of things that make you feel good and that give you energy and give you vibrancy and make you feel glowing, then I think it's a lot better. You know, like I've been doing more writing lately since I've been single. I'm currently working on the workbook to go with this. So this Diary Confessions of a Hyperromantic Asexual, 78 Life Lessons to Asexual Life book, which is on Amazon, came out in April after I split up with my ex, was a bestseller. And I'm working on the workbook. So at the moment, like yesterday and today, I've been in so much flow with the workbook. So the workbook is based on the 78 life lessons in this book, but it dives in far deeper to the life lessons to ace your life. And so that's what I've been working on. I've been working on it over the last week, but particularly yesterday and today, I've been doing loads of the chapters. So that's a book I hope to get out as soon as possible for you, because I know some asexuals do want that. They're like, yeah, I want the workbook to go with it. But it's also a solo book. You don't have to, if you're not romantic in nature, then in your aromantic, for example, you can just take advantage of the life lessons without having to read the romantic stuff in here, which is a bonus. But my point is that because I'm not having sex, I'm not in a relationship anymore, I'm actually really getting to flow for hours and hours and hours of my writing. And it just makes me glow. It makes me feel so good. So even though I've got 2 broken bones in my back when I'm recording this in July 2024, I am still happy because I'm writing, because I'm focused on what's bringing me joy and happiness. And if I was in a relationship, right, I'd be having to break off from writing. I'd be having to message that person or call that person or video chat with that person, maybe see that person, spend time with that person, especially if it's a weekend. I used to see my ex over weekends, my last short-term ex, right? But now I've got all these weekends to myself, and I am actually self-dating, but later today at night, which is why I'm doing this live stream earlier. So I'm still keeping myself date to myself, but I'm going tonight instead of this morning. And so it just feels so good. So the time that asexuals are not spending having sex or being in a relationship or being in a sexual relationship, we can spend it on ourselves, doing what makes us happy and fills our life with joy, peace, and everything. And also, it's not just to help me writing books for asexuals. That's my life purpose, you know, and it's to help you on this channel. It's to help asexuals in their life know that they've got a safe space here, and also that there's books for them. that there are people that understand asexuality, that there is things you can do as an asexual to improve your life and be happy and healthy without sex, you know. And I love doing that. I love writing books for asexuals. There's loads more coming out from me, you know. I'm in flow this time, you know, and I decided after 10 years of being on the dating scene, online dating, that's not what I want to do anymore with my life. I can use all that time that and energy and effort that I put into dating into myself, into my self-love, my self-care, into doing what makes me happy, writing more books, fulfilling my life purpose of writing books and helping asexuals, writing more books for asexuals. And it's so wonderful. But if I was in, say I was in the past relationship now, which was no good for me in the end, right? But just say I was in a past relationship, right? I'd be having to give my time up at weekends to be able to see the person, and I'd be spending time with them, and you know what I mean? I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing. I'm not saying it's wrong to be in a relationship if you're in the right relationship and you love to do that. But if there's stuff you really want to achieve in your life and you can't really achieve it if you're with someone else in a relationship because you've got to divide your time between what you like doing and seeing them, then there's huge benefits about not being in a relationship. Liam. Oh, it's great to see you, Sandra. Oh, lots of love, Liam. Always great to hear from you as well. And so there's huge benefits to not having sex. You know, when we have sex, it does bond us more to the person. When we are having sexual intimacy, it still bonds us more to the person. Just kissing, like I said, bonds us more to the person. So if we're not doing those physical things with someone else, it can be a huge blessing. That doesn't mean to say asexuals don't crave intimacy. Some asexuals really love closeness. Some asexuals really crave intimacy. Some asexuals really want touching, right? Hugging, I do like, you know, especially if I'm going through a difficult time. Sometimes I do wish I got someone here just to hug me and say, I love you, everything's going to be all right. And that is hard as a single person. That's the one thing I do find difficult, you know, because I've got a broken back at the moment. You know, I've got two bones broken in my back, which I've been going around for over 2 months, misdiagnosed as a strain, right? So I haven't had a back brace or anything like that, which I'm really proud that I'm able to like achieve what I'm achieving. But I have got a best friend who does come and help me out with housework and shopping and stuff. And they've been doing more of that than they would usually do. So it's not like I haven't got anyone helping me or no care about me at all. But obviously, there are a lot of times when I am on my own. I see them like once every 10 days or once every 2 weeks. So it's not like it's a major lot of time I see them, but they do message me as well to check how I am, which is nice. But my point is like, you know, there are times when I do think it'd be nice to have someone. If it was a good person in my life, they would be here for me saying, I love you, Sandra. Everything's going to be okay. But I have to say that to myself, you know. So not having sex and not having a sexual relationship does make you a lot more self-reliant. It makes you have to trust yourself more, rely on yourself more, be with yourself more. And that can be a fabulous thing because, you know, you get a lot more self-confidence that way. You get to be able to be in charge of your own life more, be in control of your own life more. I do think when you're having a relationship where it's just of a sexual nature or whatever nature it is, you have got to think about that other person. You can't just think about yourself. You have another person to deal with in your life. Right. And if that person triggers you or is not good to you in the end, that's when the problems can really start. And like I said at the beginning of this video, if you end up in a toxic relationship, especially a sexual toxic relationship with someone, it can actually bond you to them and make you quite addicted to a bad person for you. And that's not very well talked about that much. So I think we have to bear that in mind. But it doesn't mean to say that every person who has sex is a bad person or every sexual relationship is bad. I'm just saying what the positives are of being asexual. So let's move on now to 5 Mark 2 N's story. So what are the positives for them? So learnt a lot more about asexuality. They said about sexuality in general and romantic orientation, and have been somewhat less confused about myself since I found out. So yeah, that is a huge benefit to not having sex and being asexual as well, is that when you start understanding you're different, you start googling things like I like kissing but not sex, which is how I discovered I'm asexual. You start then coming across asexuality, and then you can read things about asexuality, and then you're like, my gosh, it's me, you know, and you think you're really alone, but you find out you're not. So that's a huge positive of asexuality. Can young people be asexual? I'm super young, but I'm not so young than most asexual people I've seen. But Unfortunately, the heart is covering a little bit of your message up on YouTube because there's a heart in the way. So anyway, the answer to your question is yes, you can be very young and know you're asexual. I mean, there's people in this book that are 11 years old, I think, 12, stuff like that, who know they're asexual. I've known someone who knew from 8 years old that they're asexual. They're in one of my groups. So you can be young and know you're asexual. You don't have to be a certain age to know you're asexual. I don't like the fact that some people are like, oh, you're too young to know you're asexual. That's a load of rubbish. That's just rubbish. I mean, why are you too young to know you're heterosexual then? Do you know what I mean? Why aren't people too young to know they're heterosexual? Because if people have got the rule that you're too young to know you're asexual, the rule equally applies that you're too young to know you're heterosexual, bisexual, pansexual, or whatever sexual you are. You're too young to know anything, you know, and that's just disempowering. It's very dismissive, and it's not helping anyone, right? I think you have to have a great awareness about yourself, and I think the more you have a great awareness about yourself, the more likely you are to succeed in life in general, because people can't throw you off your own life path and your own thoughts, beliefs, and that, and replace them with their own, which is what conditioning is basically. People condition people because they try and make you doubt yourself. And when they try and make you doubt yourself and it works, then you go along trying to seek answers to those questions. And depending on who you go to as to what answer you get, may determine how you feel about yourself in the situation. So I'm here to say that yes, you can know that you're asexual from a young age, because I've known of people. There are people in this book I talk about. That's one of the things I talk about. This person, the next person in my book, for example, Claire Evelyn, she discovered she was asexual about when she was about 14. That's one of the people that's just the next person in the book. So this person was 21 that I'm just talking about now. So there's all different ages, but 14 is quite young, but there are younger people. I think one of the guys in my book, in my group, sorry, said that they knew when they were 8 years old that they were asexual. So you can know from a young age. I hope that's answered your question. I'm happy to answer any other questions anyone's got in chat. So yeah, let's move on to the next asexual perspective about what positive things there are about being asexual. I think it's very important to know that. Right. So we're moving on now to Darcy. This is page 441 if you do have the Asexual Perspectives book, which you can get on Amazon for all good bookshops. Otherwise, let's discuss it together now. So what are the positives about being asexual? Darcy's story. I feel like I'm good. Oh, I feel like I'm a good sounding board for friends when they are having sex/relationship problems. I offer a different outlook, usually, that helps them make decisions most of the time. It sounds very arrogant, but I say this because friends have told me directly. I have one friend that calls me when she needs to be rational. I do agree with that, actually. I think if you're asexual, you can talk about sex in a much more logical way. You can talk about it in a much more matter-of-fact way. So when I'm educating people about sex on this channel and talking about it, I feel good about talking about it because I think it's educational, informative. It's more of a clinical type of thing. But if I'm in conversation with a heterosexual guy, for example, and he's talking about sex stuff, and he's in private conversation with me, that just feels creepy and kind of yucky and disgusting. This is how I felt was active on dating sites a lot of the time. It just feels like creepy and disgusting because it's like you're clearly aiming that talk at me. So I think general talk's fine, it's educational, but I think when someone's aiming at you and you're not interested in sex, it can be quite disturbing. Yeah, I feel like I am asem because I feel romantic attraction, but I don't experience much sexual attraction. Thanks for answering my question. Yeah, I think, I think if you experience, but you don't experience much sexual attraction, you probably a grey asexual. So there's different types of asexuals. A pure asexual is someone who experiences no sexual attraction whatsoever. A grey asexual is someone who experiences sexual attraction, but not enough to want to act on it, or they experience it, but only infrequently under rare, limited, or specific circumstances. So at the moment, you probably are romantic grey asexual. that's probably what you are at the moment. Like, it doesn't mean to say people can't know more about themselves later on, discover there's something different about themselves. But it doesn't mean to say that's ever going to happen either. Like, I discovered I'm asexual and thought I was heterosexual for years. So there's going to be some people who think they're asexual that probably realize after a while that they're not asexual anymore. If I thought I was heterosexual for years and then discovered I'm not, right? Because society doesn't really show you all the different types of things about sexualities, and it's limited in its knowledge about attractions. I have a attraction series, very short video on this channel, 8 asexual attractions. So I would encourage you to scroll and search my channel videos for the attractions series. I've got it on my homepage, like there's a homepage that has different videos, and at the moment it's on there. It's an attraction series, so it talks about different types of attractions, and those are all the attractions that I have, but other people might have different ones, because I think it's important to note there are different types of attractions, like sexual attractions, obviously one of them, and asexuals usually don't experience sexual attraction, or they only experience it under limited, rare or specific circumstances, and not enough to want to act on it, depending whether a pure asexual or grey asexual. And so I think it's important to be mindful of the different other attractions, such as romantic attraction, aesthetic attraction, clothes attraction, spiritual attraction, emotional attraction, creative attraction, sensual attraction. There's all these different attractions, and not a lot of people are conscious of this. And when I thought I was heterosexual for years, I just thought it was all clumped together. I just thought it's attraction. I thought sexual attraction is just attraction with aesthetic, romantic, whatever in there. I just thought everything's just one attraction. But now I'm asexual and I'm educated, and I understand myself more, how my body works, and I understand how I get attracted to different types of guys, because I'm only attracted to guys. Then I'm able to separate all these different types of attractions and understand them on a much deeper level. So if you're new to this channel, welcome. Don't forget, make sure you are subscribed and hit the bell icon so you never miss an episode. And yeah, check out my attraction series. It's very good. So Samantha G's story. What are the positives about being asexual? More free time to do whatever I want without having to worry about finding a partner. Obviously, some asexuals do still want to have a partner, but this is Samantha G's personal perspective, an Asexual Perspectives book. More chances to see someone as actual person, I can't even speak now. More chances to see someone as an actual person instead of an object for sex. So I think that's really important, because I think there are a lot of people who objectify the body for sex. There are still a lot of guys that do that. I'm not saying it's just guys that do that. And, a body isn't just for sex. It shouldn't be used for anything. The word used is horrible, you shouldn't be using anyone. If someone wants something done to their body, with their consent, that's different. But there are so many people who are just looking for a relationship based on a person's body rather than a person's mind and personality and soul and spirit. And at the end of the day, body shapes change. But you need someone with a good, kind heart who's caring and loving and giving and sharing, that has beautiful character traits, not just a body, right? So, C, a better chance to understand what it's like to be a minority in today's hypersexual society. And that is a positive about being asexual. You can understand what it's like to be a minority, but I would also say you can understand what it's like to be unique. Like, your 1% of the population, a recorded 1% of the population is asexual. That means 1 in every 100 people is asexual. But more studies can still be done into that. I think it's going to be a bit higher than that, actually. I think there's a lot of asexuals that aren't out about being asexual. And so I think that's probably higher. But that was a study done years ago. And so I think it's good, if you like being unique, especially, to think that you're a minority rather than majority. I personally like being a minority because I don't want to be like everyone else. I don't want to be like the masses. I don't want to be a robot. I don't want to just be like everyone else. I'd rather be a unique individual. We're all unique, even people who are like others in a mass way. We've still got nuances and unique, but I think if you're a minority sexual orientation, you're even more unique. And I think that's a very special thing, and I think it's a very beautiful thing. And I think the more unique we can be, the more we can make our differences in the world, and the more we can just feel so good about ourselves. So I personally love that, you know. So some asexuals never want to find a partner. They're not interested in having a partner. And so for them, that is a huge benefit to being asexual. So Juanita, what's your positives about being asexual? Well, if there's no random sex happening, less drama, less sexually transmitted diseases, and no accidental pregnancy. And as I said earlier, when I was reading from this book, I don't ever want to be pregnant. So I can have children, but it's something I really don't want to do ever. So for me, that's a huge benefit of being asexual, not having sex, and, you know, just living my life to the max and not having to worry about taking care of someone else, which I think is good. If you're an asexual that's single, for example, you can just focus on yourself, focus on what makes you happy, and focus on enjoying your life. And that's a huge benefit of being asexual. You know, you don't have to buy condoms if you're not doing any sexual stuff. You don't have to worry about pregnancy. Don't have to worry about timing to have sex if you're a person who has sex, you'll know what I mean. Like, if I was in heterosexual relationships for years, right? I had sex in the past, been sex free now since 2011. We're in 2024 and I'm recording this. It's a long time, which I'm really happy about, right? So my life is happier and more joyous now I don't have sex. So that's a really huge positive benefit for me. But when you have sex, there's loads of things to consider, like contraception, or you know, like contraception, like the pill, or some people have the coils, some people have condoms, some people use a lot of different methods. You know, condoms can cost money, some places they can be free, or otherwise it can get quite costly, but obviously it's worth doing to prevent pregnancy. If you have the pills, some people charge for the pills. I think in other countries in the NHS it's usually free, but you are putting hormones in your body, right? So in order to have sex, if you're on the pill, you're putting hormones in your body, which can have a damaging effect on you. So you've got to always remember that, right? So if you're not having sex, don't need to use contraception, then you haven't got to deal with that. You haven't got to deal with those hormones in your body, which can be really huge relief, right? So that's a very good benefit of it. Obviously, if you have periods, then you don't have to worry about your partner wanting sex with you while you're on your period. So that's another good thing. If you're not having any type of sex or any type of sexual touching or fluids being exchanged, you don't have to worry about sexually transmitted diseases or infections. If you're not having sex, you don't have to worry about changing bed sheets and stuff like that, and mopping up all the stuff that goes with that, you know. And you don't have to worry about dressing up in sexy clothes unless you want to do that of your own accord anyway. Don't have to worry about putting on some sexy knickers or frilly underwear, or buy, like, if you're not, I mean, some people buy sex toys for themselves. You can buy sexy underwear for yourselves. You can buy sexy outfits for yourselves. But what I'm saying is you don't have to buy it to please another person or have sex with another person. I'm not saying you can't buy these things for yourself and enjoy them, right? I'm just saying that for me personally, these are huge benefits. I didn't used to buy sexy outfits anyway, but my ex did buy me a Santa outfit, for example, to have sex in, which to me is gross. I look really gorgeous in the Santa outfit, but the fact he just bought it to do that, again, is a kind of a sex object thing, you know, in my personal opinion. I'd rather look good in my clothes and get cuddles and kisses, not look good in my clothes so that a guy can have sex with me. If I want to look sexy for myself, it's because I want to be attracted to myself and feel good about myself and confident, not because I'm trying to get sex. And so there's a lot of time, energy, and effort that gets put into sex. I'm not saying it's not worth it for some people, because some people like that, want it, need it, enjoy doing it, right? But sex does take a lot of time, energy, and effort up. Yes, sometimes sex can be quick. It can be just a few minutes and all that type of thing, but you still got to, like, find a location to do it in. It's got to be the time that's suitable for both you and the other person. You've got to either have contraception on hand, or you're going to get pregnant, most likely, depending on what gender you are. If you don't take the morning after pill, if you've not used contraception and you've had unprotected sex, you're going to have to go and get the morning after pill if you're female. And if there's a chance of pregnancy, you know, if you've had an operation to prevent pregnancy, that might be different. But the morning after pill can hurt your stomach. It can be a very horrible process. if you've had unprotected sex, you've got to go to work the next day. It can be very, very worrying for you. You might have to have a day off work, feel sick. Obviously, there can be repercussions like from sex itself. Some people can be very forceful in sex. Some people can be very hurried in sex. Some people can be just stick it in. All these can be really unpleasant experiences. So if you're not having sex, you've got none of that to deal with. I'm telling you kind of a lot of the negatives about having sex is why it's positive when you don't have sex. People don't talk about the negatives. They just talk about positives in general in society and how good it is. They don't tell you about the real nitty-gritty. I had someone message me years ago, which was horrifying, really, and he'd had sex with his girlfriend for the first time, and he'd gone really hard doing that, and she was bleeding. You know, that was an awful thing. He came to me because he knew I talked about sex and asexuality and stuff on here, but I had to, like, deal with that in a conversation, and I was so worried about his girlfriend, you know what I mean? More than him, really. Because, you know, he was the one who created that by going at it really hard. You should never go at sex hard like that, especially if it's your first time. Do you know what I mean? You're doing that to someone. It just, you know, the body parts are soft and squidgy there. You know what I mean? They can be broken and torn and teared and hurt. It's not a good experience. And I feel sorry for that person who that happened to now, because I know they're always going to remember that. It's going to be a lot of trauma in their life. So some people can have traumatic sexual experiences. Doesn't mean to say they're asexual or won't have sex again, but it can be very traumatic if it's not done in the right way, if it's not done with tender, loving careness and kindness, if it's not done with respect and respecting boundaries and stopping and having consent and everything like that. Which it should be. If you're having sex, it should be a fun experience, a pleasurable experience. People should be taking their time over it to get to know the other person's body and what they want and what they don't want. And they should be treating that body with the respect, love, care, and kindness it deserves, as the person does. So sex is not something to be taken lightly. And there are downsides to having sex, and these should be noted. You know, people should be making an informed choice of decision when they have sex, not just the glorification of it. That's why I'm keen now to get my Asexual Guide to Sex book out finally this year. I'm finishing my workbook off for the Diary Confessions, and then I'll be getting on with that, because the book really needs to be out. People need the help in that book desperately. So I really appreciate you being here. Thank you for always supporting this channel. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon if you haven't already. Don't forget your copy of Asexual Perspectives on Amazon. It's available in an ebook format and also available as a printed edition. The printed edition can be got from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Waterstones, Blackwell's, any good bookshops. If you haven't got a Kindle, you can download the Kindle app. Don't need to buy a Kindle. And also grab a copy of Diary Confessions of a Hyper-Romantic Asexual, 78 Life Lessons to Asexual Life, which will help transform your life as well. Go and get a copy of both of these books. I'll see you soon on the next video live stream. Don't forget to celebrate your diversity as part of the asexual spectrum if you are asexual, and our differences within it. Lots of love. Take care. And thanks for being here. Bye.